Welcome to ChemiCuss guys. So as you can see, this is the BHU PET examination test, which is the Banaras Hindu University Post Graduation Entrance Test, and this is a quite popular in MSc entrance examination test, apart from JAM and all, because this BHU is a topmost Indian university for studying basic sciences, and it has been also ranked in the NIRN top chart. So with that, I want to say that this. We are bringing this solve very early because we know that we are in so much pressure, and being a responsible channel and a student friendly channel, we are just going to help you as soon as possible. So as you can see, this is a chemistry question paper, and we are starting with the set 3 question paper. So all of you who are having the set 3, you can relate to this, and also as I am going to show the questions and their solutions, and we are not going to be going to very detailed solution here now for the time being, because we all have time constraints now, and you have to know the answer keys as soon as possible, and that's why you're making this very short by just giving the correct options. And also we know that you guys want to know what was the question, how was the question and all. So in this regard, I want to say that this question was like every year this question comes on 360 marks, and it is a 2 hours question, and with the question number 120. And this question like this first question was like repetitive one. Many of the questions I have seen, I've gone through, they are repetitive, and also you will see that most of our questions are like they are not very much conceptual. Some of them are having some like you have to mug up concepts, and some of them are very good in concept like the physical and inorganic ones, and in case of the organic you have to mug up some things, some structures, otherwise you cannot answer the questions. Now with that, we'll just proceed to the questions. So uh, first we are starting with the physical chemistry question. As you can see here, this expression, what is the expression, that is we have to tell the name of the expression now. Now as you can see, this is kr, that means the rate constant here, and this k0 is also a rate constant, and the z and zb are the ionic valencies or the charges of cations and anions, and this under root mu is called the ionic strength. So this is clearly the equation which is called Bronsted-Jerome equation. This B is pseudo here. So this is a Bronsted-Jerome equation. For question number 33, number 1 option is the correct option. Now moving on to the next point, which is the 34 number question, which tells that pick the correct match out of here. Now, while we can solve this question by just looking just at the energy trends of the spectrum, we know that it starts with gamma rays and then X rays, then UV visible, and then IR, and then it goes to microwave and radio frequency. And the corresponding spectroscopies are like for UVBs, you can say that the UVB is for the visible spectra, and this radio frequency is for NMR spectrum, and this electron spectrum just basically means the UV spectra because they're the electronic transition occurs. And then the IR region basically means the vibrational spectrum, and the microwave basically means the rotational spectrum. Now, if we just go in the trend of energy, we know that gamma rays has the highest energy, then comes the X rays, and then comes the UVBs, and then IR, and lastly microwave. And after that, if we go further lower in energy, then you can find out the NMR, that is a radio frequency. So the correct trend is the far IR region for pure rotational spectrum, because far IR region basically tells that it is very low in energy, and we know that for IR, if it is very low in energy, it goes to the rotational spectrum. While if we want to tell that this 2 is correct, for that we have to match this 2, not this vibrational and microwave. It should be IR here. And for electronic spectrum, it should be visible region here, and for NMR, it should be radio frequency. So the correct option is option number 1, that is the pure rotational spectrum, and far IR region is the correct match. Moving on to the question number 35. As you can see, What percentage of light will be transmitted through two cells put together in the path of light if their individual transmissions are 60% and 30%? So we have to just visualize this problem, because this is nothing but a pure math calculation. So if we just start that, let's say a ray is coming from this side, and there are two individual cells which are put together in the path of the light, and it will first transmit through the first cell, and then it will transmit through the second cell, and after that it will go finally to the outside. And you have to tell how much energy, how much of the percentage of transmission has been happened after this final transmission. Now first step is the first cell, which transmits only 60%. That means it goes from 100 to 60%. So only 60% of the transmission is visible. So only 60% transmit from the cell, and after that 30% of that 60%. So first we are starting with 100, and we are going to 60% transmission. That is, we are leaving 60% light, and after that only 30% of this 60% is coming through the second one. That means 60% and its 30% is only 18% of the total light. So that's why the option is first one, which is correct. So 35, option number 1 is correct. Now, for the 36 equation, we have very conceptual explanation for that, but for that you have to wait for some time, because we need to make a detailed explanation for this type of conceptual question, not for this batch only, for the upcoming batches also. So here the correct option will be activation energy. Like without the equation also, we can tell that for any chemical reaction there must be lower transition energy, that is the activation energy of the reaction. If it is low, then obviously the rate will go up. So that's why a chemical reaction will proceed more rapidly if there is a decrease in the EA, that means the activation energy of the reaction. Nextly, moving to the question number 37. So as you can see, this is also a conceptual question, and it also has to be done in a mathematical way. But for the time being, I can say that this I have done the math, and I am not showing you here. It will come in the next videos. And the correct option is the 37 4. The 4 times of T half, that is half life, is equal to the time required to decompose 75% in a second order reaction. So for that you have to keep in mind the equation, the integrated rate law for second order reactions. Now moving on to the question number 38. So which of the following has the highest value? So this question is from statistical uh, chemistry. So this statistical, as you can see, all the functions is given, which are translational, then vibrational, then rotational, and then electronic. And we know that in principle we don't have to know the partition function. We can only just tell by our basic knowledge of BSc, because we know that translation energy contributes the most among all of this. So we can just clearly, blindfoldedly tell that for 38, option number 1 is the correct option, because translation and partition function as well as the translation energy will contribute highest to the total energy or the total partition function. We don't have to know the statistical chemistry here, right? Moving on to the next one, which states that for 2s state of hydrogen atom, okay, like ions with atomic number Z, the atomic wave function is giving this one. So this is the wave function, and we have to tell about the number of nodes here. Now we know that the nodes, these nodes are basically a function of like electron density. If there is a electron density value of 0, that is, we cannot find an electron in a certain place after the nucleus of the atom, we tell it, or we regard this as nodes. Here in this equation, if we just like balance this one with 2, then you can find that at, like, if 2 equal to z by a0, then this value is 0 as a total, and the whole function is the having a value of 0. That basically means that it has one node. For this one value we have one node at a distance from the nucleus is r equal to 2a0 by z. So there will be one node for 2s state of hydrogen like atom. Nextly, we have this Schrodinger equation, and the physical meaning of this equation is, if we have this equation, like all the terms are known, which H is Planck's constant, m is the mass, and the delta function, and then plus V and psi equal to E psi. So we can tell that V stands for many things. Like we know V is velocity. In chemistry or physics, we use V in many places. Like we use M, like we use H. So like that only we use V in many cases, and one of the cases are like volts. For volts also you use V, which is a unit, and after that for potential energy also we use V. For kinetic energy we use K, and for velocity also we use V sometimes, which is a small v, not the capital one. Now, in this equation, we know that Schrodinger equation consisting of two parts. One is kinetic part and one is potential part, which together gives this total energy part. So, here this part is called the kinetic part and this is the potential energy part. So, the V stands here for the potential energy part. So, for 40, the correct option is 2, and for 39, the correct option is 2, right? Moving on to the next question. So, the splitting of molecular rotational energy levels in presence of external electric field is called Stark effect, which is very much known to us from our plus 12th level. And we are not going into a very deep explanation for this. That's why I am skipping the explanation here. And moving on to the question number 42, which tells that for biosynthesis, protein biosynthesis, the studies has been done, like the tracing, like how this mechanism happens and how the steps are occurring in the inside the reaction, that is being monitored by by noting a by just making a radioactive element incorporation inside the molecule, and after that also we can find out that what are the steps after that, and the mechanism and the steps throughout the reaction is very much easy for us to find out by this radioactive radiation, and this is called the radioactive labeling. So that's why, so protein biosynthesis, we know that for every protein or every molecule out there which are present in biological system, they are consisting of this nitrogen atom. So that's why we label this nitrogen atom in a radioactive manner. That's why it is 50 nitrogen can be just labeled, and we can find out the mechanism from this. So for this only this much, and after that we'll just make few more videos to complete the whole question paper, and hope that your exam has gone well, and best of luck for the results, right?